Welcome, I'm David Leadbetter, and it's a pleasure for me to bring to you From Beginner to Winner. You know, millions of golfers are now flocking to the game, taking it up for business and social reasons. But what I've found is that most golfers lack a complete understanding of what the game's all about and have a tremendous number of bad habits which last for life. What I'm going to attempt to do on this tape is to help the vast majority of golfers that make up this game. Beginners, novices, weekend addicts, and casual players. I'm going to give you a step-by-step plan to good golf. You have to realize all the world's great players, including the new star Tiger Woods, were beginners at some stage. So you just never know. I've been very fortunate enough to work with many of the world's top players, including Greg Norman, Nick Faldo, and Nick Price. But it still brings me immense satisfaction just helping an amateur golfer play better golf. Brought out numerous other instructional tapes aimed at different levels of players, but for the first time now I'm bringing out a tape which is geared specifically towards high handicap players and beginners, and I'm really excited about it. Now what I'm going to cover in this tape is the long game, in other words an understanding of the full swing, give you an understanding of the short game, give you some tips on scoring by taking it out onto the golf course, some thoughts for ladies, seniors and juniors, where I'm going to be joined by my wife, LPGA professional Kelly Leadbetter. Now by watching this tape, what I hope you're going to get out of it, whether you're a high handicapper, a beginner, or a player that just needs a refresher on their game, I want you to get a clearer understanding of what the game's all about. If you can do that, you're going to shoot lower scores and have a whole lot more fun. So let's get started, shall we? Well, that looks easy enough, but is it? Golf is a very difficult game, you know, as I'm sure you've found out by now. I think the most important thing I can really help you with at this stage is understanding what this golf swing's all about. Obviously, what we're trying to do is to create maximum speed with the club head and hopefully hit the ball on line at the same time as well. That's an important factor. Now, you know, many golfers go through their golfing lives without really understanding what it takes in order to make a good swing. There's lots of moving parts in the swing, as we can all see. The arms, the shoulders, the legs, the club head, the wrists, all these parts have to synchronize together. And the difference is between other sports and golf is the fact that in golf, certainly the ball is stationary. So we have to learn to make the correct motion. Now, if I just swung these keys on the end of this piece of string, this really is what we're trying to create. Centrifugal force, create maximum speed and really get the club swinging. If I pick up this heavy weighted bar here, the same thing must apply. We've really got to get this swinging. That's our objective, learning to get it to swing. At the same time, get our body to help that action to take place. Now let's look at some computer 3D graphics and see what the swing's really about. Very interesting when you look at the inner workings of a good golf swing. There are a lot of moving parts. We have to learn to synchronize the body motion with that of the arms and the club. You'll see as this golfer makes his swing, his hips and his shoulders do a lot of the work, yet the hands and arms and club have to swing in harmony with the movement of the torso. This is what beginners and most golfers, for that matter, have to learn to do, to get the right synchronization between the arms and club and that of the body. Now, if we look at this from a slightly different angle, look how his spine moves. It's continually rotating. His body weight moves back to the right and it moves through to the left. If you can learn to do this with fluidity, rhythm, and good tempo, you're going to create a lot of club head speed and maximize that centrifugal force, which is going to give you long shots and on-line shots. So we can see all the moving parts, the way the body moves, the way the club moves. And understanding, having a good picture of the shape of the swing as far as the movement of the club is vital. I see so many golfers who really misinterpret the shape of the swing. They think it moves straight back and through, almost in a pendulum shape. You see others who swing it on a baseball or a tennis plane. Now certainly the shape of the swing is determined by the club that we're using. Okay, so when I address a golf ball, we can see, I'm using my lead bar here, it's angled, it's pitched down at this angle. Now it's important when we swing the club back or swing the bar back that it pretty much follows that same angle. We don't want to distort that position either here or here. The closer we can keep it to this plane, the better. So as we swing it back, you can see it almost follows a giant circle, back and around my head, back down, and then through the other side. You can see as I swing back, it moves slightly inside this line. If we call this the target line, where the tip of this bar is on, that will go through towards the target. It goes inside, up and around, down, up and around the other side. And as we can see in these 3D graphics, which really makes it very clear, you can see the perfect shape of the swing, the circular shape. These 3D graphics really point out the shape of the golf swing. It looks like a giant wheel tilted on its side. Now from a different angle, it's very plain to see the shape and the plane of the swing. It's neither horizontal nor vertical, somewhere between the two, pretty much the angle of the golf club in actual fact. You can see the club moves back slightly inside, up and around the golfer, and then retraces a very similar path coming down all the way through to the finish. It's imperative that you visualize the shape of this swing, because this plane is what allows you to hit consistent golf shots. One of the big problems in golf is that there are a lot of things to remember, and it's very difficult to go out and try to play this game thinking of a dozen different things. You get tied up in knots, you create so much tension, and one of the keys to play good golf is that you have to be pretty relaxed. So what the swing is all about is learning to create good habits. And one of the things that I really believe in are doing one or two little drills or exercises to help cement these habits, create the proper muscle memory whereby you can go out and play golf and not really have to think about your swing. So doing a few of these little drills, which I'm going to show you now, you can do them at home, that's the beauty of it, you can really develop a good understanding of your technique. Those of you that are beginners, you don't have any bad habits, so now you're creating some good ones. Those of you who've been playing for a while and have developed some bad habits, doing these little drills will help to change that. Now the first thing I want you to do is get a 9-iron in your hand, so it's a fairly lofted club, remembering that the higher the number of iron, the higher the ball will go, and normally about 10 yards between each club. So a 9-iron is going to go 10 yards, say, shorter than an 8-iron. And all the way up through to about a 3-iron or even a 2-iron, it's about a 10-yard increment. But at this stage, what I want you to do is get a short iron in your hand, a 9-iron, and we're going to do a couple of little exercises. Now, first thing I want you to do is take two clubs and make a cross. Okay, right. Put one at right angles to the other. The one in this direction representing your target line. Now, simply all I'm going to do is place this one in the middle. So basically, it's positioned in the middle of my feet. So I'm going to stand very narrow for this little exercise. And all you're going to do is pick up a club with your right hand and grip it very lightly. One of the things we try to do is to really feel the weight of the club. Very important. You don't want to grip the club tightly. See, the golf club is a relatively light object. With my lead bar that I was swinging earlier, it tends to swing me and put me in the correct position. With this club being that much lighter, we've got to allow it to swing. We don't want to try to put it in position. Very important to let the club swing. See, what we have to really do ultimately here is to learn to make a swing and let the ball just get in the way of the swing. We don't want to attempt to hit it. That's where most golfers go wrong. We see a lot of golfers who, when they start, or who have even been playing for many years, who slice the ball. And the reason that happens is because they get to the top of the swing and they try to hit it and help the ball up in the air. So there's a saying in golf, you have to allow the club head to do the work. There's a little bit of weight down at the bottom, and it'll do it itself if you let it. If you try to help the ball up in the air, that's where most problems happen in this game. So all I'm going to do is take the club in my right hand, pretty much put it down towards my fingers, and I'm just going to allow it to swing back and forward in a nice, easy manner. So it bounces on my right shoulder and then bounces on my left shoulder. You'll notice as I do this that it follows that plane that we described a little earlier, and it's a very natural motion. Right shoulder, left shoulder. Right shoulder, left shoulder. And as I'm doing this, you can see that my feet are just rolling just a little bit. We'll describe this in more detail as we go on, but just suffice to know as I do this, my feet just roll just a little bit. So very narrow stance, right shoulder, left shoulder. Now the club in the middle here is designed to show us pretty much where impact would be. In other words, where we strike the ball. So obviously you wouldn't want to come in like this. We wouldn't want to come in like that. Ideally, the club has to return to the position where it started at address. So remember, right shoulder, left shoulder. Just do this a few times. You can see how my right elbow is just folding down, and just a nice, easy little movement just to get the feeling of the weight of the club. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is swap hands, because understanding what each hand does in the swing, what each arm does in the swing, is very, very important. So now what I'd like you to do is to what we call choke down on the club. Go down the club a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 inches, nearly to the end of the grip. Hold it in your left hand, and this time just make little half swings going back and forward. Look at my watch. As I swing back, my watch points outwards and my thumb points up. So here we go. Thumb points up, point my watch out, and then swing it down. So my watch now is looking at the target as we swing through, and then once again up into this position with my thumb up in this direction. So we can see thumb up, thumb up. Now just doing this a few times, still swinging it on that same plane, on that same path. See, I'm not taking it out here or taking it in here. I'm just letting it swing naturally up and down, nice and easily, and there we go. Now this will give you a great sensation of what the arms are doing in the swing. Now further to help you to understand this, we've got, it's not a squash racket, it's almost what they call a racquetball racket in America. And we put it on the end of a club, so I'm not quite sure what sport we're playing here, but we'll have a go. Now all I want you to do is picture the face of the racket, and you can see as I swing it back, it gradually just opens. It's like a door. It opens, you can see my thumb points up. As it comes down, it's now closing, hopefully be square at the point of contact, and then closes all the way through to this finish position. So pretty much what I'm doing back here is a mirror image through there. So you can do this quite nicely with a tennis racket. If you have a tennis racket lying around the house, very easy just to picture this shape of the swing, because that's what you have to get into your mind, the shape of the swing. And understanding that ideally what we have to do is return the back of this left hand squarely at impact. And that's how the ball goes straight. To add the speed in, which we'll get into in a little while, we just add a little bit of body motion. But understanding what your right hand is doing going back and what your left hand is doing going back and through, and then tying the two together is what you really need to understand in the beginning. Now, it's time to put 2 hands on the club. Now, to help us do this, we really have to learn to get a good grip. And I've designed a glove, I'll take this one off, designed a glove to actually help people to show them exactly where to position the left hand on the club. Now, if you're a left-handed golfer, then it's your right hand. But we're talking about your lead hand for right-handed golfers is the left hand. And it's very important that you position it properly. One of the most common faults in golf is the incorrect positioning of the left hand in golf. So I really want you to get this from the very start. Get this left hand placed properly. Now, we're going to take our trusty 9-iron out still. And with this left hand, you can see the markings. See, it's diagonally across my hand. A lot of times we'll actually get a pen and mark people's gloves when I'm giving them instruction, because we see so often that people just grab the club like this and it gets too high in the palm. And that's no good for golf because it creates too much tension. It doesn't allow our wrists to cock or hinge, which is an important feature in the swing. It gives us a lot of power. So very important to get it lower down in the palm towards the fingers. Now you can see if I hold it up like so and I sort of shake hands with it, I'm bringing it from this angle, I position it right through the crook of this first finger, under the little pad of the little finger, and then I close my hand so. Now when I look down at it, I can see about 2 to 3 knuckles on top of my left hand, and I have a little angle here formed at the base of my watch. My thumb is pretty much straight down the club, down the grip, and the thumb and this knuckle are joined together. So really work hard on that. Remember, if you could hold the club up in front of you and then simply shake hands with it and feel it down towards the fingers. You want to feel a little pressure in these last couple of fingers here. Not strangling it, but just enough pressure that you can hang on to it. Now the right hand, there's a couple of different types of grips, but what I would suggest you do to start with is the most common grip is what we call the overlapping grip, where the little finger of the right hand just simply fits on top, just rides piggyback. It's in the fingers and it fits on top in such a way that the hand is very snugly set up towards the left hand. You can see the hands work together as a unit. You don't want to grab it like you're grabbing a hammer. It wants to be pretty much in the fingers, nice and relaxed. And if I look at the V, we call this the V between the thumb and this first finger, it looks up towards my right shoulder. And the right hand is parallel to it. So now my hands can work together as a unit. So important to get this grip right. You just want to fiddle around with this and get used to it so it feels natural, because in the beginning a grip does feel a little bit awkward, but I assure you good golf does begin with a good grip. So you need to put your hands on the club in the same way each time. So there's the grip, and now we're ready to make a swing. All right, you following me so far? You're doing great. Okay, now we're going to pick this club up, and now we're going to learn to make a few of these mini swings. Now very simple, very similar to just when we just had one hand and one arm on the club, but with two hands on, what I want you to feel as you swing back, I want you to feel your left arm moving across your body. You can see as I swing here, my left arm moves across my chest, only to about a halfway point, and my right elbow points down. Now conversely, as I swing through towards where the ball would be, I now swing through to the other side, and my right arm goes across my chest, and my left elbow folds down. So in making these little swings, we feel, say, left arm, right elbow down, right arm across the chest, left elbow down. And just doing this on a repetitive basis, remember, feeling the club the whole time. Don't grip it too tightly. Feel the weight of that club head. That is so important. So keep it going, back and forward. Do it continuously if you like. Left arm across the chest, right arm across the chest. And you can see my right elbow's pointing down, my left elbow's pointing down. That's a great way of learning to feel that swing. I really like it because it gives me the sensation as I do this that it gives me my rhythm, my flow, and that's so crucial, so key in a good swing. Now as I'm doing this, also get the feeling that your left knee is coming in. So we're now adding in a little bit of body motion. See, the left knee points in, the right knee points in. So as I swing back, my left knee comes across, my right knee comes across. In actual fact, as I follow through, my right foot actually comes off the ground and my knees are touching. So just a little mini swing, back, through, and we can do this even with our eyes closed. I'd like you to do that because with your eyes closed, you get a great sensation and awareness of balance. So you feel back and through. In the beginning, you might sort of fall off your feet and lose your balance. That's okay. Remember, we're not hitting a ball at this stage. The beauty of doing this is that you learn to get the right feel without a ball. Do this at home. Do it indoors. Make sure you've got plenty of room, no lights or valuable paintings around, and also be very sure there's nobody around close to you because people have been hit with these golf clubs and they do hurt, I assure you. So remember, safety is very important. Even when you're at a driving range or a practice tee, just make sure nobody's around you or you don't walk behind anybody. So back, through, and then we're in business. So once you start to get the feeling of this little mini swing, you're really on your way. Now, what we've obviously got to do now is make contact with a certain point. The certain point being down where the ball is. So all you do is you get a tee. Let's get this tee here. And the first thing you want to try to do is just to clip the tee out of the ground. Very easy. Feet nice and narrow. Got to keep watching it. Don't have to keep your head down that long, but certainly you've got to watch it to the point where the club head strikes it, and then swing through. Remember, in the beginning, there might be a tendency to swing outside it, swing too far inside. Ideally, what we've got to do is strike it right in the middle of the face, not off the toe or the heel as it's termed. We've got to make sure that it's square as we make contact, but hitting tees out of the grass really is a major step towards actually hitting a ball. Remember, as I said earlier, what we're trying to do here is to learn to make a swing and let the ball, or in this case the tee, just simply get in the way. So let's see how we do. Just back and through, little half swings. Boom. Now just doing that, clipping the tee out of the grass, you'll find that if you make contact with that tee each time, your confidence level will soar. And then you just get to a point where instead of hitting a tee, you just simply hit the grass. Clip the grass back and through. So little half swing back, through. Remember, we're just using a 9-iron. And then the next logical step is what? The ball. That's right. Okay, so now, what I'm going to do now, which I like to do, is tee about 3 or 4 balls up. Tee them about, oh, I don't know, half an inch up. Just spread them apart a little bit. And then all we're going to do is we're going to go up and clip each ball off the tee, just like this. It feels so easy when you do it right, really effortless. It doesn't take a lot of energy or thrust in order to hit a golf ball solidly out of the middle of the club face, and that's an important factor. You can swing hard and try to kill it, and yet the ball doesn't go nearly as far as when you swing easy. A lot of the pros, you look at a lot of the lady pros, when they hit the ball, they really look like they're swinging very gently, yet hit the ball tremendous distances. And you will find that when you play your best golf, it'll feel relatively easy. The ball will come off the face like butter. It's a great feeling, and there's no greater feeling in golf than really striking the ball out of the middle of the club. So learn to do this. You don't have to find a great area in order to do this. You'll hit them probably, maximum of 100 yards with this 9-iron, with this little swing. But it will give you the proper feeling for the swing. And I can't overemphasize how these little drills, working on these, will get you to a point in your golf game where you would never believe possible. You'll really improve very, very quickly, but more importantly, you'll be learning it the right way. Most people, unfortunately, they learn golf the wrong way and create all these bad habits. So you're on the right track if you work on these little drills. So now we've got to add a little distance into what we're doing right here. It's fine hitting a little 9-iron, maybe 100 yards, but hey, we want to get it out there. So what we have to learn to do now is to use some of the bigger muscles that we have in our back and our shoulders and our legs in order to propel that golf ball a little further. So we have to understand how the body actually works, the movement that it actually makes. Now you saw in the 3D graphics how the body really turns and winds, how the spine winds back and winds through. So a bit of flexibility is important. If you're very tight and stiff or if you have a bad back, golf is a more difficult game to play. So a little bit of flexibility, doing a few stretches can also help in this game. Now, what I'm going to show you here is really how we turn the body, how we coil the body, wind it up, how we transfer our weight and then move through. Very much like a boxer who's winding up to deliver a punch, or in tennis, a server when he's winding up and letting it go. We have to learn in golf that we've got to transfer our weight back and through, and we do that through a turning motion of our body. So if you simply put your hands on your hips, and then the turn really is if I was going to turn around and look at somebody behind me. See, if I'm going to turn, you see I'm going to look at somebody behind me like this, and you'll see as I do this, My chest and my shoulders have turned about 90 degrees, my hips about 45, and I wouldn't turn and look at somebody like that, because you see now my weight is on this side. Conversely, I wouldn't turn and look at somebody like that, because now I've swayed my whole body to the right. So simply all I'm doing is just turning behind me. You can see how my hips have turned, and I'm looking directly behind me, so my left elbow points in front of me. So that's a very easy way to understand how your body turns. Just simply turn, look at somebody behind you. You can see my left knees come in slightly. You don't have to move your foot too much. If you haven't got a lot of flexibility and your foot comes off the ground a little bit to help you, that's fine. Also, a little point to remember, the weight doesn't want to wobble to the outside of this right foot. The weight should stay just on the inside of the right knee. So a very easy little exercise to understand how the body turns. Now, what do we have to do? Well, we've got to go forward, obviously. This is the backswing. Now we've got to understand how we go through. So think of it this way. We turn back, we step into it. This is almost as if we're taking a little step forward. This gets my weight moving to my left side. So we turn, we step, and then we turn once again, all the way through to the finish. So I'm nicely balanced up on my toe. You can see I'm in good balance. I'm straight up and down. We see a lot of people, when they try to swing through, they do this sort of thing, or they do that sort of thing. All I'm trying to do is I turn back, I step, and I turn through. So get this feeling, get a little rhythm go. You can do it to music if you like. It's almost like 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Now, if you can learn to do that, you will find you'll really understand how your body actually moves. And you see, the key is learning to tie in this movement with that little movement that we were making earlier. You can go one stage further, put a club behind your back. I like to do this with people. Hook it between your elbows, turn back, step into it, turn through. And this is a great warm-up exercise too. Remember, before you play golf, before you hit balls, you should be warming up a little bit. So now we're in a position where we can learn to really understand how the pivot action actually works in the swing. Boy, you're getting this whole swing down, aren't you? I hope you're following me up to this point. You're doing really well. Just remember, just understand it bit by bit. Understand what the club's doing. Understand what the body's doing. Once you put them all together, hey, that's the golf swing. You'll have a swing for life. Okay, right, now, we're really just about to get into hit some shots. Now, before we do that, remember that hopefully you spent quite a bit of time doing this, because the more natural it can become, the better. You want this to be a very natural type of golf swing. You don't want to have to stand there and think about it, as I say. I don't like people thinking about this swing too much, because if they are thinking, it's not working. Remember, you practice this in order that it becomes natural. You practice, in actual fact, in order to forget about it. So now, taking your 7-iron, what I'm going to do is ask you just to get a ball, say a softball if you can, or football, soccer ball, whatever. Just simply place it between your elbows, just like so. And really, the reason that you do this is that you're just trying to feel how your arms and your body work together. We see in many cases that many golfers, many beginners and novices and weekend golfers, they tend to sort of fly their elbows all over the place. So to get some sort of consistency, all we do is just place this ball between our elbows and swing it back. Remember the turn we've been working on. Remember the position. I'm trying to feel at the top there, my left thumb is under the shaft. And you can see I've got the ball between my elbows. I simply swing it back, feel it under here, and then from here I swing through nice and smoothly. It's almost a full swing. I turn back, thumb underneath, my right elbow's pointing down. I keep the ball between my elbows, and then through. So do it with a softball if you can. It's much easier. So get yourself one. So back, forward, and boom, there we go. So that's the whole swing. That's a complete swing, back and forward. You can see as I do this as well, important to really try to hold this finish position. You'll see all good golfers, they tend to hold that finish position. As I term, it's like signing your name to your shot, good or bad. Try to get to this position. It means that you've actually swung through the ball and not actually hit at the ball. If we can keep the club accelerating all the way through, that's our goal. Okay, now we've got one final little exercise for you. And the fun part about these, as I say, you can do them all at home. You don't need a lot of space. Obviously, to hit some balls, you do need a little space, but These other ones without a ball, it just gives you that muscle memory. So important, as I say, to groove a swing. Now just take a towel. Now what this helps you to do is to understand the rhythm and the flow of the swing. We see a lot of players, because they are thinking a bit, tend to take it back a little bit too slow, and they don't get the club swinging. Now when you have the towel like this, you'll be amazed how you can actually start to feel the swinging motion. So you want to crack that towel through the impact area, all the way through, swing the towel, and boom. And you'll find the acceleration happens all through here. So learning to get this towel swinging is what it's all about. You'll see you'll develop good tempo, good rhythm, and that's another final exercise to add to your repertoire of drills. Okay, so I'm going to take a 7-iron, and actually I think it's a good idea for many people to get some what they call wiffle balls or practice balls. We've got these little sponge balls, you can buy them anywhere, and it's a good idea to simply use these as your initial ball, shall we say, to hit, because what it'll allow you to do is to not worry so much about the result. I think one of the biggest problems in learning golf initially is that we're so result oriented as far as hitting a solid shot, hitting it a long way, where if you can work on your technique initially and then forget to some extent what's happening to the ball, in the final analysis, yes, obviously that determines what actually happens in your swing. But in the beginning, when you're working on things, and in order to take the pressure off you, it's a good idea to sort of work on this. You can even roll up bits of paper. I mean, you can do this at home very easily. So just take one of these balls. Now, let's see if we can make a good practice swing. Same feelings. Good idea in between hitting shots there to make the odd practice swing. When you go and practice at a driving range or on a practice tee, make sure that you make a number of practice swings in between balls. Don't just hit ball after ball after ball. Important to get the feel. So here we go. I'm going to make this swing. Right, now, let's clip this ball away, shall we? Right, now we've got quite a strong breeze blowing today, so this ball's going to be taken off in a easterly direction. So let's have another swing. Just having something to swing at. Could even be daisies, bits of grass, anything to give you the feeling that you're actually swinging through the point where the ball would be. Remember, that's important. Swing through the ball, not at the point where it is. If you swing through it rather than trying to attack it, you'll find you'll hit a lot of great shots. And now we're ready for the final test, shall we say, to actually hit a ball. And if you want to do it off a tee, that's fine, because you get a bit of confidence doing it that way. And then eventually you'll be able to just hit the ball off the turf. So what you want to do is position the ball for, say, a 7-iron, everything up to probably about a 5-iron, about in the middle of your stance. Okay, your feet, don't get them any wider than your shoulders, even when you have maybe a 1-wood in your hand. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but basically, for most irons, you can keep the ball about in the center of your stance. That's easy. See how my feet are slightly turned out, so it gives you the impression that the ball is about here. Okay? Don't want to get too far back or too far forward, so keep it centered. And one thing you want to do when you're hitting a ball, and get into the habit right now, whether you do or whether you don't hit it to a particular point, at least visualize it going there. If you were playing darts and you're trying to go for the bullseye, you'd be trying to visualize yourself making that dart go into the ball. So the same thing here. Try to visualize where you want the ball to go. Don't visualize where you don't want it to go. There might be water or out of bounds or some hazard out there, but always try to visualize where it wants to go. Be positive in your mind. That's a good tip for you people starting to play golf. Right, so here we go. Get set up to it, nice and relaxed, and off we go. The beauty about having all these balls here, if you make a mistake, you'll hit a bad one, you can pull another one over. Not quite as easy when you're on the golf course. You've only got one chance at it. So you've got to get it down out here. You can see myself in perfect balance, and that's what you need to learn to do. Get there and hold that finish. Now, I've been practicing this for a number of years, as I'm sure you can gather at this stage, but it takes a little while to get to this point. But these little exercises are so good in order to get you there. So please work on them. We're going to show you now some different clubs that we're going to hit. And remember, one swing fits all. You don't have to worry about trying to make a different swing for every club that you've got. One swing's hard enough to learn. We don't want 14, which is the maximum number of clubs you're allowed in your bag. Putting swing might be, your putting stroke might be a little bit different, but please try to work on these little drills and exercises. I can't overemphasize it. I'm a big believer in it. I've seen so many people improve so quickly if they just allow themselves to do this on a regular basis. Learn step by step, brick by brick, and you'll see great results. So let's talk about these other clubs now. Well, I hope you've got the gist of all this, and the fact is, if you can keep practicing on these things, you're going to gain some consistency. Now, you've been practicing with a 9-iron for the mini swings and a 7-iron to hit full shots, and now we're going to talk about some longer clubs, because it's important to realize that one swing fits all. Now, comparing this 9-iron to this long iron, the 4-iron here, we can see certainly it's shorter in length, and obviously there's more loft on the 9-iron. So the 4-iron is a more difficult club to hit, and the tendency is for most golfers to try to lift the ball in the air because it's got such a straight face on it. Now, as soon as you try to lift the ball in the air, all sorts of things happen. So what we've got to try to do is to make the same swing as if we were hitting a 7-iron and just hit the 4-iron in the same manner. It's a matter of maybe just understanding it in a slightly different way, understanding the address position, and really emphasizing a couple of points in the swing, which I'm going to show you now. I'm also going to talk about how to hit fairway woods, okay, a 5-wood, which for most people would be a really good club to use, and also the driver, because a lot of people want to hit that ball out there a long ways. So we're going to show you how to do that as well with the same swing. Now, the key thing to remember in hitting a 4-iron or the long irons, 3-iron probably is the lowest iron that you want to use. I wouldn't suggest you try using a 2-iron or a 1-iron, which a lot of the pros use. They are extremely difficult clubs. But if you can remember that the start of the swing is very, very crucial. Most players go wrong on the first 3 feet. In other words, the tendency is either to snatch the club back, lift it up, or whip it inside. The key is to start everything together in one piece. The hands, the arms, and the club, just as if I had the ball between my elbows, starting it back in one piece. Very important to get that motion. If you can do that, it helps to give you a nice wide arc, which is so important when you hit these longer clubs. The other thing that's important is to make sure that when you swing it back, that you really have a full wrist cock. Remember we spoke about pointing the thumb up in the air? Well, you want to make sure that your wrists are fully cocked. By the time the club's about halfway back, the club should be fully cocked to a point where when you continue your backswing to the finish position, to the top, the thumb should be right under the shaft, a full wrist cock. So the club, for the most part, is looking down somewhere parallel to your target line. We don't want to have it over here or over here. It's okay if it's a little shorter, that's fine. But the fact is, you want to feel like you've got a full wrist cock, because this is a very powerful position. Remember, these wrists act as hinges. And if we can learn to snap these hinges correctly, you get a lot of speed through the impact area. Now, so we're starting everything away together, getting a full wrist cock. And the other important thing that you must remember when you're hitting these longer clubs is to swing it smoothly. You don't want to jerk the club from the top. You want to make sure you complete that backswing and start down nice and smoothly. If you attempt to try to hit the ball from the top of the swing, all sorts of problems come about. It's what we term hitting from the top. This is why people slice the ball. This is why people have a great tendency not to get their weight through, because everything is done from the top of the swing. What we have to learn to do is to complete the backswing, start down smoothly, and whip it through the impact area. Let's show you how. So I'm going to be nice and relaxed, not too much tension in the arms, focusing on my target as we've said before. Right. Now, it takes a little practice to hit your long iron solidly, but the key really is, as I say, to make sure that you really complete your backswing. That's a good key word when you're hitting these longer clubs. Complete. Right, now let's talk about the fairway wood. And I'm going to take out my 5 wood, which I think for many golfers is an extremely valuable club. There's a lot of loft on it. You've got a nice wide sole, so even if you hit behind it slightly, it's very forgiving. And even a 7 wood is a great club for many golfers. So experiment with a 5 wood and even a 7 wood, and you might find that the long iron, say the 3 iron and the 4 iron, you won't even have to use. But the technique is exactly the same. We try to put the ball a little more forward in our stance, because what you need to do is to make sure on all these clubs that you actually feel like you're sweeping it off the turf. See, with a middle iron being a 5 or a 6 iron, a short iron being a 7 and 8 iron as it's termed, you really want to hit down on the ball. That's why we put it in the middle of our stance. Hitting down on it, you take a little divot and the ball goes up and puts a little bit of backspin on it. Right, now, for these clubs, you want to put the ball a little further forward and learn to sweep it off the turf almost to a point where the club is actually striking the ball on its upward path. So it's an ascending blow with these longer clubs, a descending blow with a shorter club. So ball position takes care of that. So remember, a little further forward with the long irons and the fairway wood, and obviously the driver when we get to it. So same thing, starting it back smoothly in one piece, full wrist cock, and starting down nice and smooth. You'll be amazed on these long par 4s or par 5s. Learning to hit these woods consistently will get you right up there near the green and hopefully allow you to make your par. Okay, right, now, the driver. This is the club that everybody wants to learn to hit. Now, in the beginning, you might want to think in terms of just using, say, a 3 wood, just until you get comfortable with the driver. It's a big head. It hasn't got much loft on the face. It's a pretty straight face once again. So it can be a little intimidating in the beginning, but once you start to get used to it and hit it a long ways, there's no greater thrill in golf. So maybe use a 3 wood or maybe a driver, even with, say, maybe an 11 or 12 degree loft on it. A lot of the pros are using clubs with maybe a 7.5 or an 8 degree loft, which means that the face is very straight. So it's much easier for them to get the ball up in the air because of the dynamics they create in their swing. But for most golfers, having a little more loft on the face just gives you a little more margin for error. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now is to tee the ball up a little higher than I would in normal circumstances. So with an iron, we're going to tee it. If we remember on a par 3, you might tee the ball up just a little bit there to give yourself a good lie. Now with the driver, what you want to do is to tee the ball so certainly at least half the ball appears above the top of the club. This gives one the feeling that one's going to hit the ball on the upswing. We want to make sure the ball is right off our left heel. Okay, remember, short irons, middle irons about in the middle, longer irons, fairway woods a little further forward, and the driver further forward still. So right opposite the left heel, and then you feel that you can come into the ball and really give it a good whack on the upswing. So same thing with the swing, start it away nice and smoothly together, full wrist cock, complete and smooth. And this is something you can do with and without a ball. So it's a good idea, make the odd practice swing, feel what you're trying to feel, and then get up over the ball with the same feeling. Nice and relaxed. All right, that felt so good, I'm going to hit another one. It's fun when you start hitting your driver well because you really want to hit ball after ball. So one thing one has to do when one's practicing is make sure you slow down a little bit. Don't get too anxious and hit ball after ball after ball. Just relax a little bit in between shots and you'll find that you'll maintain a nice, smooth, easy rhythm. Nothing to it, and this is fun. Now remember, you've got a lot to work on with all your clubs. But one swing fits all, that's for sure. So whether you're hitting a 7-iron or even a mini 9-iron, the swing wants to feel the same. Ball position varies slightly. I might have my feet a fraction wider for my longer clubs, but to all intents and purposes, it's exactly the same swing. So you've got to practice hard with all these clubs to get confident with them. And once you do that, you can get out on the golf course and not really have to think about it. All right, so we've got some good thoughts for the long game, and now we're going to talk about the other half of the game, the short game, and that's a lot of fun. Ah, yes, the short game. Now this is an area where we can all improve on, pros and beginners. But I'll tell you what, if you want to get good, if you want to score low, you need to work on the shots from 60 yards and in, because they really make up more than 50% of the game. So it makes sense that really you should practice this at least half the time. Many people don't. That's why they don't score nearly as well as they should do. You see, if you hit it this far short of the green, I'm about 40 yards here with 20 yards of carry over the bunker. If you're going to make a par, then you've got to get it close enough to knock the putt in. Now there's a lot of holes that you won't be able to get it on the green in what they call regulation. Now in regulation, just so you know, it means if you hit a green in 1 on a par 3, that would be regulation. In 2 on a par 4, that would be regulation. And on a par 5, you'd hit it in 3, allowing for 2 putts. Now, if you don't, or you're not able to do that, in order to make your par, you've really got to be able to get the ball close. So, pitching, bunker shots, chipping, and obviously putting are such an important facet, I can't tell you. So if you want to get good, take my advice here. All you golfers out there watching this tape, work on your short game. Now, as far as pitching is concerned, and I would consider a pitch shot up to about 60 yards, you want to take a very lofted club, probably your sand wedge, which is your most lofted club, or maybe a pitching wedge, and you want to learn to make a little mini swing. We've spoken about mini swings before. Well, this is really a mini swing, a micro mini swing, shall we say. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to stand very narrow and a little open. Now a little open means that I'm actually standing to the left, okay? If I was standing to the right, that would be termed closed. But what we're trying to do here is stand a little open. This allows me to swing through to the hole. So what we do is we put the ball about in the middle of my stance. Now, it doesn't look quite in the middle just because of the angle, but the fact is when my feet are open, it'll look a little further forward, but it's about in the middle of my feet. I have a little bit more weight on my front foot, and then what I want you to do is put your hands down the club a little bit, what we call choking down the club. That gives you a bit more control. And then pretty much the swing that we've been working on, a little bit of a turn, we can see the wrist cocked just a little bit, and we swing through. Not a lot of foot or knee movement, a very controlled motion. And smooth, that's a big key for these shots. Have that smoothness in your swing, and you'll have a lot of control. Now remember, if you want to hit the ball longer or further, you just swing the club back a little longer. You don't try to hit it harder. Conversely, if you have a shorter pitch shot, you swing it a little bit shorter. You don't try to hit it softer. So the length of your swing controls the length of the shot. But it's not that difficult a shot, it just needs some practice. So what I want you to do, say sit up to it a little bit open, remember, aiming slightly to the left, that's with your feet, your knees, and your shoulders just a little bit. Choke down on the club. You're learning all these new terms now, you'll hear all these when they speak about golf on TV. And a little bit more weight on that front foot. And then a very controlled follow through. Try to hold your finish, and whatever you do, picture the shot in your mind. Remember, hitting this shot here with a lofted club, the ball goes up, it won't run very far, it'll get onto the green and just release a few feet. So a nice smooth shot, picture the ball rising up in an arc and falling on the green and running close to the hole. Let's see how we do it. Nice and relaxed, picture the shot. It's great when you hit a shot like that and it ends up close to the hole because you know you're going to save your par. So please practice these pitch shots. You'll have a lot of fun and it'll be very, very rewarding. So pitch them close, save those pars. here we are lying in the sand, about a 20-yard shot. And this is a very scary proposition to many golfers. Now the reason, I think for the most part, is that we're so trained to actually strike the ball. On this occasion, we don't want to hit the ball. We want to hit the sand behind the ball and let the ball ride out on the sand. So it's getting used to actually hitting a portion of sand behind the ball, accelerating through and getting the ball out. And that is your major objective. Get the ball out of the bunker, onto the green, onto the surface. Once you start to do that with regularity and you have no fear of the sand, then you can start to think about getting them close to the hole. Now, from a technique standpoint, it's not that difficult if you can understand exactly what takes place. And that means in swinging the golf club here, we have to make sure that we feel like we're actually going to be swinging slightly across the ball. Now, what you want to do, let me explain that. What you want to do is stand a little open. We've already told you what that is, all right? That's standing to the left. We want to stand a little bit open. And then what we want to do is to bury your feet in the sand. Give yourself a firm footing. If you lose your footing here, you can lose your balance, and the problem is you're not going to hit the right part of the sand. Now, what I want you to do is to open the club face, so take your sand wedge, obviously, open the club face slightly, and then take your grip. So we're actually gripping with a slightly open face. This just really helps the club to get through the sand, and that's important. You don't want it to dig in. If it digs in, especially if it's very heavy sand, the ball's not going to go very far. So what we want to do is bury our feet in, get good balance, and then look, probably somewhere 2 to 3 inches behind the ball. Now I'm going to put a line in the sand. Now officially you cannot touch the sand. That's a penalty. But I'm going to do that at this stage just to show you that you want to aim probably 2 to 3 inches behind the ball in that general vicinity. And then as long as you make sure you swing through and hit that point, hopefully the ball will come out with the sand. All right, so let's see how we do. Now, standing a little open, a little left. See, my feet are to the left of the flag here. All right, important to picture that. A little bit left, probably about 30 degrees or so. And then what I'm trying to do is to swing the club back on the line of my body. Don't take it in here, and don't try to take it out anymore. Just swing it back on the line of your body and then through. And the big thing is to make sure that you keep down on the shot. Don't try to help it out. All these shots around the green, don't try to lift the ball in the air. Try to keep the flex in the knees and swing through. So look at that point about 2 to 3 inches behind the ball. Focus on that, not the ball, and make sure your club accelerates right through. So don't stop when you hit the sand. The key ingredient is to almost feel that you're knocking the sand out onto the green. If you can do that, the ball will definitely come out. Okay, now relax, don't grip it too tightly, and try to visualize and picture a perfect shot in your mind once again. So stay slightly open, along the line of my feet, watch the point and follow through. Now the important thing is to make a nice smooth swing. Don't fear the shot. If you fear the shot, you'll get tight, you'll get tense, and you really won't follow through. So let me hit one more for you. Now I'm going to try to hit this one a little further, and you're going to see I'm going to be a little more aggressive with my follow through. So in order to get the ball going a little further, I've got to hit it a bit harder. So my follow through might be a little bit longer, but make sure whatever you do, follow through. Don't stop at the sand. That's the golden rule out of the sand. Look a couple of inches behind it, get your posture right with a nice knee flex, and then accelerate the club all the way through. Try to hit the sand all the way to the hole. As with all these shots, it takes some practice. So put a few balls in a practice bunker and hit them out. Say if you have a long shot and you feel you can't get to the hole with a sand wedge, you might even use a pitching wedge or a 9-iron. That's a good little tip for you. So practice it and you'll have no fear out of bunkers. As they say, practice makes perfect. And that is very true for these little chip shots around the green. Now let me define a chip shot. A chip shot is one where the ball bounces onto the green and rolls a fairly substantial distance. In other words, it'll roll more than it will carry. And when you get close to the green, if ever you have the opportunity of doing that, make sure you play a chip shot rather than a lofted shot. You almost want to picture that you're tossing a ball. Okay, if I was going to visualize this shot, I'd take the ball in my right hand and I'd do this. Now, as close as I can get to that technique, the better. So it's very much a case of swinging the club like a pendulum. And I'm going to give you a couple of ideas how to get really good at chipping. Now, first of all, probably select two clubs that you would normally chip with. I'm using a 7-iron here for a fairly lengthy chip. As I get closer to the green, a shorter chip, I'm probably going to use a 9-iron. So if you use a 7-iron and a 9-iron, that's not bad. That's pretty good. You might use an 8 or a 6, but I would suggest for most players a 7-iron and a 9-iron. Now, what you want to do, you want to grip all the way down almost to the metal, right at the end of the grip. You want to have your feet fairly close together, just a few inches apart. Maybe the left foot pulled back just a touch. You can see here, just pulled back just a little bit. And then, with the ball opposite my right toe almost, have a little bit more weight favoring the left side. Now, the trick here is to make sure that you don't use any wrists. People have problems where they flip their wrists in this fashion here. They try to scoop the ball. The firmer your wrists are, the better. The more like a pendulum, the better. So this left hand always stays firm. You never want to see your left hand breaking down, as we term it. So what I like to think of is taking this triangle formed by my arms and my shoulders, moving it back and through. So if you think in terms of triangle back, triangle through, pretty much on a straight line, you will find with a little bit of rhythm, remember, rhythm and smoothness are very important in these shots. Swing it back and through, make sure that left hand stays nice and firm. So, straight back and straight through, swing the triangle, and make sure you really watch the ball. That's key. A lot of players miss these shots, or miss-hit these shots, because they move their head too early. So keep your eyes focused on the ball. Now, we set up to it, we picture the shot once again. Notice how keen I am on you, trying to picture that shot the whole time. Get a positive picture in your mind of what you're about to do, and then get over the shot, swing the triangle back, swing the triangle through. Pretty good. Now, forward just a little bit closer, I'm going to use my 9-iron. Same technique, visualize the shot, triangle back, triangle through, have a couple little practice swings before you actually hit the shot. Make sure you just brush the grass, and really there's hardly any body motion, very much a hands, arms and shoulder motion, moving that triangle back and through. You don't want to move your legs all over the place, otherwise you'll miss-hit the shot. And then visualize it and hit the shot. Plunk. Oh, that's dead easy, isn't it? There's a lot of feel involved in these shots. You'll find that once you get experience, you'll be able to hit all sorts of different shots around the greens. But for now, for consistency's sake, keep it simple, keep it easy. Just use your 7-iron for longer chip shots, your 9-iron for shorter chip shots, and focus on getting a nice, smooth motion and picture the roll. If you can learn to do that and get the ball close, you might even knock a few in just like I did there. Putting, yes, it's often called a game within a game. The fact is, it's at least half the game. Remember that really if you're an average putter, you'll probably have 2 putts per green. That's 36 putts. Any more than that and you're totally wasting shots. The pros average around 28 putts around. So you've got a lot of work to do when you start this game in order to become a good putter. But really, if you want to improve your score, really become a good putter. That should be your goal. It's fun to practice. Not that many people do, but it is fun to practice and very, very rewarding. Now, there's some simple things that you want to follow in order to become a good putter. First of all, as with chipping, you don't want to use a lot of wrists. You want to keep the wrists out of the stroke. You want to make it a nice firm movement with your arms and your shoulders. If, when you put the putter on your leg like so, you just flex your knees, all right, and let your hand hang in front, just simply let your arms and shoulders move together. No knee movement. You can see, if I move, I can see the putter moving. So just rest the putter on your leg like so. Good little exercise. And then just move your arms and shoulders together. Okay, this is the praying position, as we say, because a few prayers do help, especially when you're on the green. All right, so we move arms and shoulders together, and the putter pretty much moves straight back and through. Now, I have a ruler here, just to help me. You can use a line on a carpet or anything that allows you to see the direction that the putter swings. Now, what I want to do is position myself in such a way that my eyes are pretty much on top of the ball. Okay, take your normal grip. At this stage, I would suggest just take one grip that you use for all your shots. Don't make it too complicated. There are different grips which you'll learn, I'm sure, as you get more experienced. But for now, just your regular grip will do just fine. So all I want you to do is get your eyes over the ball, relax your arms, just feel like your arms are just resting on your chest, flex your knees a little bit, and take the putter back nice and low and fairly straight back and through. Pretty much the length of the putter going back equals the length of the putter going through. You also want to keep your head nice and still. We see this with many golfers. They're looking for where the ball's gone before they've even hit it. So make sure you stay nice and still. Keep these legs nice and firm, and remember, almost straight back and through. The putter face must be square when you make contact. And relax your grip. Very important to have a nice smooth stroke. Good tempo with a putt is just as important as it is with a full swing. Now, you've got short putts, which you hopefully knock in, and you have longer putts. Now remember, in order to hit a longer putt, don't just think you've got to hit it harder. The key with putting is to make sure that you graduate your stroke. The longer the putt, the longer the stroke. If you can learn to do that, you can really gain some consistency. I see many golfers, they have a little short stroke and then try to help it, or they have a long stroke and then slow down through the ball. Very important with putting that you accelerate the putter at all times through the ball. So remember, eyes over the ball, back, through. It'll be fairly short back and through for a short putt. You can see when I make this putt, this is about a 4-foot length, maybe a little bit longer. Okay, stay nice and still. Now as I go back for a longer putt, which really what I'm trying to do is get the ball close to the hole. I expect to hole these ones, but the longer putts, what I want to do is just get them close. Remember, you don't want to waste shots. You want to make sure that you get the ball close enough so you have a maximum of 2 putts. If you 3-putt a hole or 4-putt a hole, you're wasting strokes. So let's go back and hit a longer putt. Right, now, probably I've got about a 35-foot putt here, and this is really all about feel, just trying to get the ball close to the hole. Now, one of the things to become a good putter, you have to learn to read the putt. So that means you'll see with the slope, whether it's going to move left to right or right to left. Sometimes you have grain. This all takes experience. Now this putt is going a little bit uphill, so it's going to be a little slow, so make sure you become adept at actually reading greens, sensing how the ball has to roll in order to get close to it. It takes a little practice, but this you can do on a practice putting green. So what I'd do, I'd get behind the ball and I'd visualize it. And once again here, I like to work on a routine as well with my putting to make sure I'm nice and relaxed and do the same thing each time. So that's something you can work on as well as you really get the feel for putting. Now all I'm trying to do is visualize a line going to the hole. It's going to break a little bit from left to right, a few inches, and I'm going to see if I can get it close. I try to imagine a 2-foot circle around the hole, because if I can leave myself a 2-foot putt, I'm reasonably confident I can knock that one in. So all I'm going to do, once again, I'm going to get my eyes over the ball, get nice and relaxed, nice and comfortable, look at the hole, and then stroke the putt. Oh, that one just missed. A little bit fast, a little bit firm I should say, but not bad. Now, remember, the stroke needs to be a little bit longer if you've got a longer putt. Don't jab it. Make a nice, confident, smooth stroke. All it takes is practice. It's feel, a little bit of technique, and you'll be amazed. If you have a good, positive, confident attitude, you're going to knock a lot of putts in. So you must practice your short game. The pitching, the sand play, chipping and putting. If you can get good in that department, your handicap will come down so quickly, and you'll be shooting lower scores than you could ever believe possible. So by all means, work on your long game, but practice that short game. Please do that. Well, you've all been working very hard on your games. Now for the real test, to see if you can take what you've learned out onto the golf course. The golf course is a very different proposition to the practice tee, because out here you've only got one shot. There's all sorts of hazards, there's out of bounds, there's water hazards, there's bunkers, and so on and so forth. So it really is a matter of learning how to score, and that's what it's all about now. So I'm going to show you and give you a couple of thoughts how to take your game out onto the golf course. Okay, here we are. The pressure's on. 420-yard par 4. I'm going to take my driver out. But before I go ahead and hit the shot, the thing that you really need to do is assess the situation. Some water hazards down the left, quite a bit of room on the right. So obviously if I'm going to err in any direction, it needs to be to the right. So make sure whatever you do, you sum up the shot before you get down and hit it. That's very important. Remember, we only have one shot at it here. We haven't got all the balls lying down on the tee like we do when we're practicing. So very important to stay really focused on this one shot and to picture in your mind where you want the ball to go. Now I think the big thing that one needs to really work on out on the golf course more than anything, much more than technique, because you don't want to fill your head full of technique, but you do need to have a good what we call routine. This is something you can in actual fact practice on the practice tee. Now a good routine means, apart from assessing the shot, but it means that really what you've got to do is get behind the ball, learn to line up correctly, and have certain mannerisms which you repeat on every shot. It's very much like tennis. You see somebody in tennis serving, and they're always going to be bouncing the ball a similar number of times before they get into their action. See, in golf, the ball is stationary, really waiting for us to make the mistake. So what we have to learn to do is to keep in motion, but have these mannerisms which we can repeat and hopefully build a consistent swing. So let me show you the type of routine that I think you should work on, which may really help you when you're playing, because it helps you to get relaxed, helps you to get focused, and hopefully it's going to help you to hit a good shot. Okay, now I'm going to pretty much tee the ball up in the middle of the tee markers here. Right, let's get behind it. I'm going to pick a point out just in front of the ball, because that's easier for me to line up at something just in front. A little piece of grass or a twig or a leaf of something of that nature. It's what we call an intermediate target. Much easier than aiming something way out in the distance. So I pick a spot just in front of the ball. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk round looking at that point, aiming my club face at my intermediate target, with my feet pretty much together, and then moving my feet in a way that I can then get my ball position correct. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the target, And I'm also going to waggle the club. This is important too. A couple of little waggles just to relax the arms. You don't want to stand there stiff and tight and tense. You want to waggle the club and really get into motion. So right, let's go through this now and hit the shot.